Hello there and welcome. I am Lisa Hofelt along with Dana Hofelt, and we are super excited to be here tonight. And we are going to talk about metabolic health, and that is our topic for this evening. And we're going to talk about what it is, how you can recognize, how strong or how weak your metabolic health is and how it applies to you and what we can do about it. So we are super excited to have our guest Dana on tonight. And, when we talk about the 5 markers of metabolic syndrome or metabolic health, we can just kind of unpack that because it's super important. So when we talk about abdominal um, obesity or just that whole spare tire, that extra flab that people have, that is a sign of your metabolic health,
Yeah.
one way or the other. And I think the recommendations, if you take a tape measure and you measure your waist and rate like by the belly button. So if you're a man and your inches measure 40 inches and below, that means you're metabolically healthy. And for women, it's 35 inches and below. So if you are below that, you are in good, that's one good indicator of good metabolic health. So if we're over that, that could be a cause for concern.
And unfortunately, so many of us are over that.
Hmm.
And so many of us might not even realize that because we don't pull out a tape measure all that often. So.
Right? Yeah, the tape measure doesn't lie.
Unfortunately.
Yeah. So other uh, metabolic syndrome markers or metabolic health markers are, of course, high blood pressure or blood pressure in general, and you know, impaired fasting glucose. So when our resting glucose in the morning, and I don't know if you've ever worn a blood glucose monitor. Have you ever
I
dove into that?
haven't.
Okay, yeah, that can reveal a lot. So
Mm-hmm.
when you wake up in the morning and your resting insulin levels are pretty high, it can definitely get your attention for real. And I would definitely recommend that everybody like think about getting a blood glucose monitor and just experimenting with it because it will reveal a lot. Like it's shocking to see the relationship between foods and how it
Mm-hmm.
affects your blood sugar. It's pretty wild. It's very telling. um, uh, Another marker is high triglyceride levels, and another marker is the last and final is low HDL cholesterol levels. And I think it's really interesting when we look at the 5 points of metabolic health, how it can play into our daily lives.
Yes. I think something that people can do when they do use a glucose monitor is look at their fasting glucose levels or their levels after they eat,
Mhm.
but also making a mental note, how do they feel in those moments?
That's very good because it's like, well, when I was wearing, I've done a blood glucose monitor for a couple of different times, and you get the particular unit I used gives you a 10-day snapshot of your metabolic health or your blood glucose levels. And like I said, it's really interesting watching your numbers. And it becomes a game. I think it's really
Uh-huh.
interesting because for me, it became a game. It's like, oh, what can I eat to keep this low and, not spike and peak?
Mm-hmm.
Because that's where we get into trouble. When we eat something and our blood sugar is like peaking, spiking, but also that was a really good point to pay attention to how we feel during that because it's like, oh, I feel kind of jittery, or I feel like this, or I feel very tired after I eat.
Right.
And then taking a look at your blood glucose and seeing what it's
Seeing that
doing.
correlation.
Yeah. And typically here's what's happening when we're tired
Yes.
is that whole peak and crash kind of thing. And the more we can avoid the peak and crash, the better.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually, this was kind of an interesting quote that I found earlier today, and it says, Food is medicine, exercise is medicine, and supplements are medicine. And yeah, we just had a really good conversation with a family on Friday. And I told the family, I'm like, look, here's the deal. Like every single bite of food is taking us one of two directions. It's either leading us toward health or away from health. And to be conscious of those choices that we make on a daily basis,
Mm-hmm.
and I know I've said this a lot of times before, but it's not what we eat from Christmas to New Year's that's going to affect our health in a big way, but it's what we eat from New Year's to Christmas that's going to make the biggest impact on our health.
That is so true. And I think we're both similar in believing in the whole 80-20 concept. So 80% of the time, you are eating a balanced diet with whole food matter. And 20% of the time, you can indulge in some, if you're at a birthday party, go ahead and have a slice of cake. Don't be the odd one out. It's important to live a life, but that's the whole key. We want to make it a lifestyle and not some sort of a fad diet.
Right.
And that's when people want to twist it on their head when we end up with things like metabolic syndrome. So,
Well, I think it's really interesting too because it's like how many people do we know that have lost big amounts of weight, right?
mm-hmm.
They've done a diet or they've done this or they've done that or they've made some lifestyle changes, but as soon as they go back to their old habits, like the next time you see them 2 years later, it's like,
They're
oh,
bigger.
yeah, and it's like, oh, you gained all your weight back and then some.
Yeah,
And that always kind of breaks my heart because I know they worked really hard to get where they were at. But on the other hand, it's like if you don't change that dynamic in your life with your metabolic health, that's going to be your story.
exactly. And if you're not changing the habits are what go with you. You have to do a real change at a more core level of your own self and have more of a introspective journey, so that when you come on the other side of some sort of a weight loss, you have the tools and the habits that you are necessary for attaining that.
Right. Very good. Yeah, that's a really good point.
Mm-hmm.
And I think too when we talk about metabolic health, I think a lot of times the other part of that is gut health. And I know
Yes.
gut health was our topic the other day, but how much, Dana, do you think that gut health and metabolic health are connected?
Oh, 100%.
Right, right. And I think that's too why like a lot of people that lose weight, as soon as they stop the diet or go back to their old habits or whatever, like they just gain all that back. But because I think a lot of times it's they haven't gotten their gut health straightened out.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they've done the necessary things for their body to metabolize and lose the weight, but as soon as, that stops, they go right back to where they were and that's because of the gut health. I guess
Yeah.
that's my theory. Back me up on this.
I would definitely agree with that because your gut isn't getting a break too.
Right.
Because if you go through something so restrictive for a period of time, that really does mess with our gut microbiome as well. And if we're not working on healing that through that process, when we start to reintroduce gluten and sugars and refined carbohydrates, our body, our stomach gets very inflamed. And that's when we start to gain what we already had before and more so much quicker because we're all out of whack. Our body doesn't know what's going on, and we basically put it into a state of shock. So, what I would recommend for anybody who's eating a standard American diet,
Oof, the
um,
standard American diet, the
the
sad
SAD,
diet.
yes,
Oh, it's so sad.
would
Uh,
be our enriched probiotic and prebiotic enzyme, digestive enzyme.
right.
If you're not going to get your gut health straightened out, I don't think that your chances of having a lasting weight loss will be very attainable for you, unfortunately.
Well, and I think too, like it all starts in the gut. Like there's so much that hinges on our gut health. And I think everybody on planet Earth that eats a standard American diet or that lives in America in today's world, I guess,
Mm-hmm.
um, should be using the enrich, Chernot's enrich. And that's why is because we're eating all this trash food, all this over processed, over over everything. Like it's all the trash ingredients that are in our foods today. It's actually alarming what the food industry is doing to us. They say to people say to shop the um, the parameters of the store,
Mm-hmm.
and it's interesting because when you start doing that and doing that as a habit, and shop well, first of all, your shopping experience, grocery shopping, is a whole lot quicker.
Yes.
I think it's great. And then the second thing is that it really makes you aware of how much of the intersection of that store is.
Yes.
How much is in there? That's insane.
70% of all the food in that grocery store is in the center.
That's
That's insane.
it is. It's really wild. And I
Yeah.
think too, you know, and just how the food industry has changed so much, even from when I was a child or I was a kid. I mean, we used to eat a lot of junk food, but I don't know, it's just different in today's world. And that's why it's so much more important to get our gut health straightened out because there's so much that so many people have to deal with, and at younger and younger ages.
I know.
That's the thing. Like, there's nothing that breaks my heart more is the phone calls that I get from the 20 something, your age group,
Mm-hmm.
right? How old are you?
22.
Okay, yeah. Woo, woo, at the ripe old age. But no, you would not believe how many 22-year-olds, 23-year-olds in that, you know, um, genre of people that call us, call my husband, call me, and, tell us about the significant health issues that they're having. And
Mm-hmm.
it's heartbreaking because it's like, dude, you are so young. First of all, you've got your whole life ahead of you, and you're struggling with this. And it's a lot of it is completely preventable. Just by making some changes. And I think too is like we can supplement the right way. That's one of the big things is supplementing the right way, but changing your diet and making good choices and being proactive with what you're it's a biblical concept. We reap what we sow, right?
Exactly.
And we reap what we sow and whatever we're putting in here.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting how many people don't put that tie together.
I know. And I would also say, to expound on that, if you're going to be spending good money on high quality supplements, you're doing yourself a disservice if you're going to continue eating a poor diet. And
Yeah,
that's all there is to it.
right. You're never going to out supplement a poor diet.
No.
Like, and like you said earlier, it's like you're going to be in circumstances and situations where you are going to either not have a choice of foods, or somebody's going to be invited to a wedding or a funeral, the funerals pop up or that kind of thing, or church fellowships, and nobody wants to be the weird one. So in those circumstances, just go ahead and eat,
Mm-hmm.
right? Don't make it weird for everyone, especially if you're like you know what would you call the bride up and say, "Oh, I'm on this special diet," or, "I don't eat this way and I, won't come to the wedding if you don't,
It comes,
accommodate me."
it's very rude, unfortunately.
Right? And I know people that do that, and I was like,
Yeah.
that would be just why put other people in that situation when you're the one that's making the choice. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, the 80-20 rule I think is very good. If you can make it 90-10, that'd be even better, but we all live in reality world.
Right.
So, um, so one of the other things that I want to talk about with metabolic health is GLP-1.
Oh my goodness. So
So
exciting.
I know. So glucagon like peptide, GLP-1. Let's just call it that. So what can you tell us about GLP-1?
Yes. It
My little expert.
it is a hormone that is secreted by our small intestine during the digestive process. And what it does is it makes us feel more full. So once you have your first bite of food, GLP-1 gets excreted, and your brain's like, I'm actually okay to not eat as much. So that's pretty big. So it increases our satiety levels, and it also reduces the amount of insulin that our pancreas secretes into our bloodstream after we eat, effectively lowering our blood sugar levels. So if you're somebody who might be having kind of an issue with that, GLP-1 is a very
Useful tool
useful tool.
in your little toolbox.
Yes.
And one of the reasons why we're talking about this is Trinot on the 28th of March is coming out with a product that contains GLP-1. And I think a lot of times, I think it's great that it's a hormone and we're just naturally supplementing with something that encourages your body to use that hormone and access that hormone. Because how many people do we know all you need to do is just go to the buffet, like no joke, and just watch people. Like
Yes.
you find a little perch in a good spot and just watch people, and how many times they go back to the buffet line, or how much is on their plate or how much they're throwing away. And I'm not telling people to be nosy, but it's like, on the other hand, it's very telling. And I think a lot of times when we have jacked up hormones, which, I kind of came from that area or that space or that place in my life. And, you know, how is it that people can eat and eat and eat and eat and eat and eat and not feel hungry or not feel full? I mean, it's crazy.
Because they have
Well,
a hormonal imbalance.
bingo, bingo. So how do we get that hormone imbalance? Well, by supplementing with an ingredient that promotes your GLP, your natural, there's also Ozempic out there, and
Yep.
I hate to use there's medications that people could take that
Right.
that are synthetic in nature, but they also come with the side effects. And I'm not going to go through that whole list of side effects. Look it up yourself, right? Like, just Google it, or
Homework.
yeah, exactly. Do your homework. But there's detrimental things that can happen when people take the synthetic version. But the natural version, when it helps your body promote the GLP hormones secretion. When you take that one plate at the salad bar or the buffet joint. I'm picking on buffet joints tonight, I guess. But Jerry and I just recently went to one, so I think I can.
Yeah.
But it was interesting because when you're satisfied and you're just like, dude, I can eat one plate and just set this aside and converse the rest of the time, rather than feel the need to just like trip after trip after trip. And it's like, how can people do that? Well, that's why, because their hormones are completely jacked up. So we are super excited about this new product coming up. And one of the things that I really like um, about the new product coming up is it's going to help so many people. When we look at it, the 5 metabolic syndrome markers or metabolic health markers, just think of what regulated glucose levels are going to do for so many people. It's pretty incredible, actually.
Might I add, the sale of semaglutides, which Ozempic is a semaglutide for
Right.
those who don't know,
Fits in that category.
has gone up 40 times in the past 5 years.
Come on.
So you need this, or someone you know needs this. If I was a betting woman,
Yeah,
this is a
absolutely.
need.
No.
And people are unfortunately having to turn to these synthetic options.
Well, I think a lot of people are aware that they have a problem in their life, but they feel like they have no other options or nowhere to turn.
Exactly.
So why not go to the synthetic? And everybody's looking for the quick, easy pill that will help them lose the weight. That's just a one and done. But I want to be able to lose 20 pounds and still eat my pizza. right? I want to be able to to lose that 20 pounds, but still eat my junk food
Mm-hmm.
and still eat my comfort foods and still eat my carbohydrates and like all the things that we know are bad for us. We're just looking for that magic pill or the magic solution or the magic shot or whatever that's going to give us all the inclusive things that we want, right?
Exactly.
We want our cake and we want to be able to eat it too.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just not going to happen in the reality world. But on the other hand, when you supplement the right way and changing your diet too, like I'm not going to sit there and sugarcoat it and tell people, your sugar is your problem, right?
Yes.
And it's definitely a hard reality for a lot of people, especially people that are addicted to it. Back in the day, I was totally addicted. But, when we look at some of the statistics, 50% of Americans have are pre-diabetic.
Wow.
50%. That's insane. Like there is no way those statistics should be there. But then here's the really kicker is 30% of young adults are pre-diabetic. We're talking 18 and under. And that's super sad because, just think of that young person's life is going to look like in 10 years.
Exactly. And these are the years that are supposed to be their prime, and they're losing it
Right.
because they're not able to perform at their level
Right.
of people their age.
Yep, absolutely.
How
Absolutely.
much life you lose is something people don't always attribute to weight and being metabolically unhealthy, but it's so true.
It's very true. So I think with that, when we talk about metabolic health, and we're going to wrap up here in a minute, but with the GLP and just being able to, you know, I think for me, here's what happened is, I mean, I lost 96 pounds, right, and I've kept it off for over 5 years. But for one thing, I got my gut health straightened out. But the biggest thing for me is that, once I felt better, it was so much easier to make better choices, right? Like it was so much easier to, hey, I feel good. So I can, I'm not tempted to go back to that comfort food, go back to that
Mhm.
carbohydrate, go back to that sugar, go back, feed that sugar addiction because when you feel better, you just naturally, I think, want to make better choices. And that is one of the biggest things that I learned about getting my gut health straightened out, with the enriched, not enrich, but with the transform and getting your uh, glucose levels, in a certain way. And a lot of times we eat fairly, I would say, keto, carnivore, whatever, right?
Mhm.
We're really conscious of the carbohydrates we eat. But like I said, we always know we're going to be in those situations. And so I will take a couple of Trinats Transform when I know that I'm going to be in those situations. Like, let's just, be real. We're all in reality world. But so we do that. That's one thing that we do. But, wearing that glucose monitor really was an eye opener for me, like big time. But the other thing was that when you do make those good choices, you just feel so much better. Like you can't put a price on good health. You really can't, and I think too that, it just, well, I'll just say this, and this is the reality of my world is like, when you feel tough and you feel bad, and my hormones were so jacked up for so long, it's really hard to be pleasant when you don't feel good.
Oh, for sure.
I mean, I think we've all been sick and, just kind of and lash. And here's the thing that we were talking about guilt earlier.
Mhm.
And, when you lash out at those that you love the most, you feel guilty because it's like, this is just not me. This isn't who I am, but I just feel so crappy that it's just like it's really hard to be pleasant. But and then when you lash out at the people that you love the most, right, your inner circle of people, your inner circle of friends, it's awful. Like, and then that's where the guilt comes in.
Yeah.
I spent a lot of years being guilty as feeling guilty as a wife and a mother because I felt so awful for so long that I couldn't be that person. But here's what I know is God is good and he can definitely redeem the time. And I'm so grateful for Trinont and our line of products and our leadership that we have because I don't know where I would be today, to be honest. So we are going to wrap up. We are super excited about the up and coming new product. Any final parting words?
I just want to end by saying I too have a similar testimony that I won't get into, but you really can't put a price on good health. And some of my littlest, arguments I've had over the past winter or so before I introduced glow into my little regimen of the morning was because I was having constant knee pain. And I wasn't the best wife that I could be. And, that's something, there's a lot of emotional aspects to our physical well being and
Mm-hmm.
vice versa. So if you're somebody who is in a similar situation or just struggling yourself, you might, even though you might be doing all the right steps, having the proper diet, you might be lacking in the supplement department. So definitely check us out. Premium supplements, top of the line, and those are my closing words. So.
Right. Very good. So we will see you next time.
Yes. Bye.